What's going on, guys? Dan here, Duty Speed Shop. As always, in the garage. Man, we're in the dungeon garage today. Feels so tiny, but I put a pile of new lights in here, so hopefully it's not flickering too bad with the camera. And we're working on a 56 Chevy Wagon. This thing has never been in the new garage, so why start now? Now today is going to be a full day of stripping. Not that kind of stripping. So we have... Already I pulled out that motor, that 6-liter LS. We have an overdrive transmission. And I have a 10-bolt rear end I pulled out of a Camaro or something like that. I got to put a tape on it, but I'm pretty sure this should be a direct bolt in. So now we'll have a much more modern setup. These Tri-5 rear ends, so I used them from 55 to 60, I want to say 2 or 3. And they're like a center section style rear end. Actually, I have one over here. They look like a Ford 9-inch. Just like this. But they're very limited for gear ratios. The axles, I don't have an axle out here, but I think they're 14 spline. So they're, like, again, unique to Tri-5 early Chevys, Corvettes. And they can't handle a lot of power. Not that we're putting a pile of power in this thing. It will be a relatively stock LS motor. But if you ever want parts or anything like that, bit of a nightmare. This way, I mean, come on, a Chevy 10-bolt, they everywhere. We're golden. And a lot more opportunity for gear ratios. And if you want to put a posi unit in it, is much simpler. A posi unit for a Tri-5 style rear end, fortune. So, step one, this thing all has to come apart. Mortsky, I'm thinking of you. Look at the dual flexies. That's for you, buddy. So this thing has a aluminum radiator in it, which I got from a buddy who had, I think, in like a dirt track type car. So it all cut up, welded back together, had no drain bung on it. So that was sweet. So I just jammed a screwdriver in the lower radiator hose, and she's leaking out, trying not to get any on the floor. There was a few things I did that were kind of quickly done to get this motor and trans kind of working in this car. This thing, as well, in case you're new here, I originally bought it for Power Tour of 2020, and of course that didn't happen. I had a big block tunnel ram overdrive transmission in it. I thought this thing will be ridiculous, it'll look fun on the highway, blah 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 blah. Power Tour got canceled. The motor came out, I put it in a different car. It just kind of sat around with no motor in it for a while. I lost interest on it, even though I did a pile of work to it. Just, down the dumps. We're not using hot rods. It was a tough time. I cut the hood up. I did a bunch of things to it. And then last year, I believe, I had a small block Chevy kicking around with an automatic transmission. So I put that in there. This is an El Cheapo motor, but it runs. I put a set of headers on it, intake, carb, does its thing. It runs cool, no issues. Transmission shifts. We have the drive shaft in it. The plan for this motor and trans, we're going to yard it out. And it's going to be, obviously it fits in a Tri-5. It's going to go in Danny's car, her 57 Chevy. So we're going to put the motor trans in. The transmission's leaking somehow, some way, as you can see. So we got to fix that up, but that's a little bit down the road. But this should slide right in. I have a proper Tri-5 radiator. I got a few things like that. Actually, probably a year ago or so, I was gifted a EFI kit by a superb viewer. And I kept meaning to use it, and I just never did. And I think, you know what? It's going to go on Danny's car. So we're going to switch over to EFI. It's it's a atomic EFI. I believe that's what it was in the box. We're going to put that on there so it'll start easy, be nice. Stock turbo 350. I think it has a high stall in it. I'm going to change it to a regular converter. Just make a nice cruiser that won't overheat. Turn the key, and it'll just go. And her car, unfortunately, it was the first 57 I kind of really got together, and I ended up borrowing a lot of parts off of it to get a bunch of other hot rods on the road. But this is the year of finishing projects, so that's what we're doing. That being said, this one has to come completely apart before we start putting it back together. So I think we'll be motor trans out. The rear end has to come out anyways, but the rear end has to come out, I believe, to get the fuel tank out, and the fuel tank has to come out because we have to modify it for the EFI system. So this thing is literally going to be sitting on jack stands with no rear end, no motor, no trans, no drive shaft, no soul for a short amount of time. But really, once we get going on that, should be able to kind of slide the motor trans in. We got to figure out brackets and all that. But I'll have a motor in it in a week, a couple of videos. Will it run? Probably not. We're going to screwing around with that. I got to order the Terminator kit, which I actually just heard they're out of stock, a lot of them right now. So hopefully we'll luck out on that. But worst case, it all goes together. We can deal with that down the road. So let's get stripping. So Danny came out and killed the shot. I was a little lost. Anyways, so we got this thing mostly shipped down. You know what she said? Wow, this motor looks kind of small. And then I told her there's a motor going in her car, and she's like, attitude. Okay. So we got this thing mostly stripped down. I took the distributor out, carburetor off. I'm going to lift it with the motor plate, or the carb plate, I should say. The distributor is real close to the firewall, and we're probably going to have some tilt on the old girl. Together we're going to take motor and trans out together, rad out, front dress out. Hopefully we can get the crank pulley, like stand it up and get it around here. That being said, this thing doesn't have any of the side flaps. I'll probably just take the core support right out now that I look at it. Two, and two more bolts, and then it's smooth sailing on the way out. Tri-5 Chevys, with the big hood, it's nice. But that's why you see Tri-5 Chevys with this cut right out of it all the time, is because this is high and it's a pain in the ass. We got the one header undone, and then I dropped both of my wrenches, so I took a stop. Oh, this thing's got a brand new mini starter on it. Man. Brand new fuel pump, brand new water pump. I have my good valve covers on it. Got my nice intake, the good carburetor. The headers were junk, but I welded them back together. The ceramic coat, they just didn't fit. You're getting all sorts of good parts. This transmission leaks real bad though, so you're gonna have to get used to. Leak too. This might be the transmission that was in your car. Actually, I'm thinking about it.
I had to take that little bag of stuff with me everywhere I went when I parked at work, so I could put it under the car.
That's hot rodding.
That's hot rodding.
That's hot rodding. Anyways, so yeah, we'll get back to a little bit more fast motion, but headers off, and then I think just a fuel line, core support out, and then we'll jack this thing up. We've got motor mounts, transmission mount. We'll do something with the exhaust, maybe undo the headers. Drive shaft, yarding out the motor. Be a good time. You get to hold the camera and watch me struggle. Every day of my life. Okay, so a little bit more screwing around later. We have the headers off, miscellaneous. Wiring is all out. I popped underneath and undid the transmission cross member and the shifter linkage. I mean, pretty minor stuff. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna peel out this cross member real quick, because that's always a good one. If you're a Tri-5 guy, please do this, because I have run out of core supports. Actually, I modified this one for a rad hose. I might have to fix that later. But because everybody cuts them, I'll put you in the stand here. So everybody cuts these out, right? You'll zing, zing, and then the motor comes out much easier, which is great. The problem is this does hold the fenders together or apart. And if you remove this and you have your radiator, and a typical Tri-5 rad actually bolts on the inside of this, it'll kind of pull on the radiator, separate it. This is also how you do your adjustment for the hood at the front of the fender. That's all there is, so don't cut it out. Fast forward to 3 minutes from now when I'm cutting it out. Oh, that was easy. Now, granted, they're supposed to have these little kind of bat wings on each side, which I immediately removed, and I don't put them back in. If you do put them back in, I use like 2 bolts. Because they are a hassle. I will say they have like 3 here and 3 on the inner fender, and it's a real nightmare. It's probably not the best doing what I do, but I feel like it's better than nothing. You know, DD Speed Shop, better than nothing. That's what we do. Ugh. One. Oh, where's the other one? Damn, my. Oh, almost. The factory one has like a captured nut, which is a bit of a nightmare, so I always just take that out and put some 3/8 bolts in. But that being said, I do remove this more than the average guy. Oh, 2-piece. I'll have to weld that back together. I wonder if I did that. There we go. Look how much room there is to get that motor out now. Man, there's Tri-Fi boneyard over here. Okay, all that's left, undo the motor mount bolts. I gotta crawl under, pull the drive shaft, and then set up the engine crane. You guys can let me know right now that I'm an idiot for having the front end of the car up for a motor pull when I should have the back end up. And every time, I hear you. But the engine crane I have, I guess it's not like a low pro one. If it's on the ground, it ends up hitting the control arms. It's wide, so it kind of hits like where the ball joints would be. And if you tilt it, it hits even more. So I realize it'd be easier to pull the motor out, but the engine crane I have just don't work. You know, you can't even steal a good engine crane from your old man anymore. Mur, if you're watching this, could you invest in a low pro engine crane? I would really appreciate it. Here's the epic fail of the day. So I thought it was going to be good. We had it all dialed together. I was going to get Danny out to film this. The most important part of the video, guess what? The camera didn't record sound. So not only am I mechanically inept, technology, well, we all knew technology was my issue. Anyways, I blame Danny. She was holding the camera. So here we are. We're going to pull this sucker out. And ultimately, I was going to do it in fast motion, but I thought, you know what? It'll end up looking like the Blair Witch Project, all shaky. So you get to listen to my beautiful voice talk over it. So we're pulling this thing out. Now, the real issue we run into is the lack of length in this old garage. Now, I know I'm being a little spoiled with my other shop there, but it is a little tight. Of course, it's winter, doors down, so I'm going to have to pull this thing out and shimmy it sideways and pull the transmission up over the fender. Now, of course, this thing is pristine original paint, so I'm real careful about it. Now, I did get this thing hooked up pretty good, so I need a real nose-high stance to rip it right out. Of course, here, as I'm telling Danny, this motor's perfect, and it's going to be fantastic in her hot rod one of these days when I don't run out of jam or energy or time or whatever it may be. So I'm sure I'm saying something pretty clever to the camera. This is where I notice, oh man, there's a few things still hung up there, half the wiring. You know, as many small block Chevys as I've put in and taken out, you think I'd kind of have it down to a science, but I'm winging it every single time. So we got that all dialed together. At this point, I noticed the throttle linkage, which on a Tri-5 Chevy is a metal rod, was caught in the intake manifold. So I got that out before I bent it all to crap. I actually did order a low-car knockoff throttle cable for this thing for the LS. Man, I'm spending money like crazy. It was like $47 on Amazon. Shimming it out. This is where Danny always gives me a hard time, but she's pointing out something else I'm missing. It's really no big deal. I didn't know this transmission was black, so usually when I buy a rebuilt transmission, they're black, so I don't know if I tried to fool myself and paint it, or if this was actually some sort of transmission I had that was rebuilt or whatever. I got to look into it a little further. I noticed the dipstick tube was clearly what was leaking because I had just RTV'd it and jammed it in there, and I don't even know if it was the right stick or what the heck it was, but we got it in there. For the keen observer, you'll see the hood latch is homemade piece of sheet metal, so I have that on the list of what I need to get as well, because I don't know if that'll hold up on the piles of miles that I want to put on this thing, but yeah, cranky, like usual. We got the thing nose up, as always, screwing around. Oh yeah, and this is where Danny noticed that a plug wire was not going, so it had a bit of a rough idle. As it turns out, it was probably only running 7/8, as well as it should have, but we'll just go ahead and ignore that. Those headers that were on there were not Tri-5 headers. I had chopped them up and put them in. I actually think they were Camaro headers or something, which Would be handy to have right now, but now they've been modified to be Tri-5 headers, and they were real tight on a couple of them boots. I didn't have any heat wrap or whatever you want to call it on there, so oh well. I don't know what the heck I'm saying here. Oh, I'm trying to figure out where this damn motor's going to go, because there is motors everywhere right now. We got that big block over there. Ben Rod, oh, Danny points it out. Look at that. Then we got the Opel motor. We got a couple of transmissions over there. We got a small block Chevy over there with a transmission on it. There's stuff everywhere. Now, this motor I didn't want to go put in storage because we're going to use it fairly soon. I think I want to use this exact drive line in Danny's 57 to get that transmission leak figured out. I actually think it has a high stall in it. I might pull that out and put a stock converter in it. We should be good. Look at that little shuffle go. A couple more cranks in the engine crane. Then you're going to watch me muscle over this fender, which of course I was super careful on. But it was so much easier with that center mount out. Oh yeah, this is where I realized I didn't put a transmission speedometer gear in it, and instead there's just a plug and a bolt holding it in. So that was pretty good. But yeah, that cross member out in the front, or the rad support, taking it out, I'm telling you, if you're a Tri-5 guy, take them out. Don't cut them out. Makes your life 1,000 times easier if you're changing motors more often you change your underwear like me. I was saying this, I've spent more time swapping motors on this car than I actually have driven with any motor in the car. So, yeah. That thing got a mini starter on it. I can't believe how many new parts were on this thing. It was like a treasure trove. New water pump. The headers were all decent. All new gaskets at my good intake. Good valve covers. Brand new mini starter. All sorts of good stuff. This is where the floor's a little on the greasy side. And it was, well, I was acting a little stop on it. So I didn't want to roll away. So there we go. I'm just going to tuck it in the corner and probably forget about it. It's actually now been a couple days since I'm editing this video, and it hasn't moved, and the engine crane and motor are still in the way of that door. So every time I have to go to the other garage, I have to step over a small block Chevy and Turbo 350, which I'm sure we can all relate to. But I got to get the motor back in this thing, and once it's rolling, we'll get this garage all cleaned up. So there we go. Push it in the corner. This is my blunder. Sorry. Hopefully, one of these days, after a few hundred more videos, maybe I'll figure out to double check the audio, and yeah, we'll have a better video going forward. So I don't know what we're doing next, but it's exciting. Okay, fast forward just a scotch. Motor's there, doors open, just spilled a bunch of gas. Yeah, blank canvas. You know, I gotta say, it drives me nuts. I rebuilt the front suspension a couple of years ago, and I mean, already the Moog stuff is just falling apart. Junk. 0 miles, 2 years. Now, at the back, we got ourselves, we're lifted, as per usual. Ugh, man, no hoist, what is this? So this thing had all brand new stuff. These are brand new drums, they just have surface rust. Brand new fuel tank, I'll show you that, because I just love these wagon fuel tanks. All new, you know, brake lines, hardware, shocks, brand new Lyle's mufflers. Man, this thing was all dialed together, and I didn't do any rust repair or paint any of the rust. I just kind of left it the way it was. I guess I could use a light and show you. But yeah, now we have the rear end hanging. Ugh. Look at this fuel tank. I freaking love it. Now you got to imagine when the suspension is loaded, the rear end is right up in there. So even with the rear end drop to get the fuel tank out is an impossibility. You actually have to roll this ahead on the leafs, which, I mean, they have all brand new hardware and bushings in there. These were new U-bolts, I should say. Man, this thing had a lot of work done to it to be able to take it apart. Now, here's what we're going to do. So, our rear end is going to go in place. Well, it doesn't have the same mounting setup, so we're going to have to add a set of perches to that other rear end. Now, the only tricky part about leaf spring rear ends is setting your pinion angle. You're setting your pinion angle with the perches on the axle tube. Obviously, when you have none, we have to create that pinion angle. Now, typically, I'm going to Bill Nye Science guy real quick here. The way you're supposed to do this, and the way we're going to try and do it, are two separate things. Step one is you're supposed to have the car completely level. All four corners, front to back, yada, yada, yada. You want to set the rear end in, and I believe you want, I don't know, a couple degrees of pinion angle put in it while it's loaded. You know, weight on the suspension. The idea is, as you accelerate, I believe the rear end is going to want to walk up, so you want to compensate for that. Now what we're going to do, or what I have already done, I should say, I had my pinion, oh man, stupid far away, oh, magnetic. I have my angle finder. Now what I did is I put the magnetic base on the pinion while it was completely loaded up, and that gave us, it was like 86 degrees or something like that. Then I did it again while it was unloaded, and it gave us 89 degrees. So the pinion angle changes depending on the suspension is loaded. Now, those numbers are essentially irrelevant if you were doing this from scratch. What I'm going to try and do is recreate this exact situation. So if we don't touch the car, we put the rear, we take this rear end out, fuel tank out, whatever we got to take out, but the car doesn't change, the measurements are irrelevant. You don't have to zero anything out. At least I'm not. We just have to recreate that rear end pitch with the exact same jack stands, exact same way it's going to be. It's kind of like cheating the system. Now, what I will do is after I have it tacked into place, I'll probably jack the front end up and do a little bit of alignment and just see, double check my work before I buzz it in. But in my brain, if this right now unloaded is sitting at, I said 89 degrees, which is just what this is showing. By the way, I had it. I mean, if I put it on the top, it would have been different, but I had it straight ahead. And if the other rear end goes in, I set it at 89 degrees. The suspension travels can do the exact same thing. The rear end should twist the exact same way. And we'll just go ahead and get that taken care of. So, I'm going to wrestle this out real quick, or at least take some parts off, which shocks out. And then there's just 2 U-bolts, which should come out real easy. Then the rear end will be free. And then I think I'll probably just pull it off. I'll pull the exhaust or not. And that's where we're going to leave it for today, because I've been struggling. There's gas everywhere. It reeks. And I now have a headache. Hot rodding. Good time. All right, so got everything mostly apart. The rear end's kind of on the floor jack. It's stuck on this side here. What the hell? A few more pumps. We have the door, man door open, and the heater on, because it's a combination of cold and smells like gasoline. Why is this stuck here? What's going on? There we go. Okay. I hate this. So we're gonna try slide this over, up and over, gentle. Oh, I probably should have taken the shocks off. Oh, and I still have the e-brake connected. Blunder. How am I gonna get this apart? Oh yeah, tri-5s are a frickin' nightmare. What does that one have? Nothing. I think because of my Leatherman, I'll buy a new brake light later. Oh, come on, girl. Survival. Oh, I actually think I might do it. Come on, what bear girls do. Oh, that didn't work. At least now I've ruined it, so no one can use it. I don't really want to use a grinder. So there's gasoline everywhere. Yeah, I got a better set of snips in the toolbox. Yeah, it's like the first time the Leatherman's let me down. Alright. Alright, hopefully we're lined up again. Just gave her a cut with some snips. Don't want to break my leg. What are we caught on? Muffler. Maybe I can drop her down. Oh, the exhaust. What a fiasco. Okay, well the other option is to drop the spring, which I was hoping I could avoid, but I guess that's what we're doing. Damn it. Okay, man. She's fighting me. We got the back of the leaf spring dropped down now. The second I take the load off this rear end, which is jammed to the fuel tank, it's probably going to crash down, but be fine. This is the Nomad's new rear end, so maybe it'll be... Oh, it's not bad. Not bad. Wow. Look at that, I got a little win. Oh, perfect. And we're done. Ugh. So now I'll just show you. I guess I could have showed you on the other rear end, but same exact thing. So this is the style of perches that this thing has, which I have something similar. Actually, I could probably just cut these ones off now that I think about it. To weld on this rear end, which I gotta say is a bit of a mystery. I bought it off a guy I kind of know. He told me it was a good rear end, so I trust him. But it's off, this is Camaro style. So, I wonder if those would work actually. Well, I guess I'll have to measure the width, but probably not. And these look like they're wider too. Anyway, I'm just gonna weld my other ones on. I'm talking out loud, thinking out loud, I guess I should say. That's where we're leaving it. This thing is like stripped down, nobody's home. Next video will be fuel tank out and screwing around with that and putting the rear end back in. I like to have it hung in there. We gotta make sure take the brakes all apart, make sure they roll, make sure they spin, see what it needs. Obviously I have to order a pile of stuff from Rock Auto, so I'll have brand new brakes, but at least then it'll be a roller. The second it gets to this position, it's not a roller, I'm like instantly motivated, because if you don't keep going, someone like me will show up and buy it from you for pennies on the dollar. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're a member, I appreciate you guys extra. We're really trying to make it up to you. But a lot of people signed up to be a member, help a little bit extra, and we haven't done a whole lot. So we're trying to do a video a week for all those extra supporters. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.